everybody, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, and disembodied hands, Quindy, Justin, John, and a pawful Kiki. A very pawful Kiki. No eating me. No eating me, young lady. Come on, come on, come on. Hey, 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 hey. No, no, no. Ah, Tweety Chief. Off, gone, exiled. Have fun. Yeah, have fun. Exiled. So exiled. Ugh. Yeah, two chompers. I may have to stop it. I know I mentioned this before, but for a couple days she was actually pretty good. Those of you who see her on Saturday stream see the difference, because on Saturday stream she totally, she's much calmer, and you guys get to see the explosive morning Kiki who still has all her energy. So yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot I updated people on Saturday, Twistedoma, but yeah, you weren't on that stream, so no, she's the metronidazole, the antibiotics cleared the diarrhea rate up, so she's still on them, but she feels fine. Yes, very chompy puppy. Reaper Toolbox. It used to be Reaper Toolbox. It is RTB Pro Tips. And it is right there on my there. It's right there. Yes, we try to make sense whenever possible, but sometimes you just can't. Hopefully Kiki will be distracted by the bone I gave her, and she will be a good girl during the stream. Oh, lordy sakes alive, people. Oh, yeah. How did it go, though, Inara? Did you have a great weekend? I think I saw your comment earlier when I was coming in that you had a great weekend, which is awesome. I don't have a convention until KublaCon, and I might not even have that because Bridget's litter, Kiki's half siblings, might have to be puppy tested then. So I may be flying to North Dakota instead of going to my local con. Oh, nice! Yay! Inara! Go! Yay! Super, I'm happy for you. So does that mean you have to compete in the advanced paint competition, or is there not an advanced paint competition? Next year, I mean. Settle down, little clicky paws. Oh, I see. She heard me doing the happy dance, and so she walked over. Like speed paint on Sunday or on Saturday? May have to try the harder level. Yeah, I mean, nothing ventured, nothing gained. But I mean, if you already won the intermediate, then you know you can do that. So, but I always like to give myself an excuse to push it a little. But everybody's different, so if that doesn't motivate you, it doesn't motivate you. Oh, nice. Oh, 9 people is a very respectable paint club for a first paint club, Cranston. Like, that's really good. Very cool. Oh, wow. You had a lot of orange in there. Orange and red. At least you have the Syrian sand, though. And you can mute the red with the green. That would be a hard one. Oh, nice, missed him. Congrats on the vendor booth. Don't let Malcolm eat any prints. Oh, come on. It was only 1 hour. That just sounds like an excuse to nap at 10 a.m. That's what it sounds like to me. All right, Sophie, what are we doing on you? We are trying to finish your medal. Kiki! Shh. Little Miss Trouble is really trouble today. Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what I would do with that. I mean, you could darken the green with the rust. Just a touch of rust. Yeah, interesting. I mean, at least you had kind of complements, so you could mix neutrals, but... Yeah, the thing with a paint club is if you wish you had a paint club, start one. I learned that a long time ago, like, because it takes somebody who actually really wants one to start a successful paint club. Like, anybody else, if your local store, like, promises to do it, but nobody on their staff is really into painting, don't expect it to start. Like, it takes passion to do these things. So, if you have the passion and you have the time, consider trying it out. If you feel like there might be, like, a local group that you could find by doing it. And sometimes it just takes you coming, like, for a few weeks by yourself. But I never minded that. I never minded the startup period because I just sat and painted. And that's what I wanted to do anyways. I wanted to have a place to sit and paint that would make me sit and paint for an hour or two. Right. Yeah. Virtual paint-ups are easier for you than Shadow Raven. But I mean, if you're close enough to your local sandwich shop and they were going to start something, you could try to start that something. You could talk to them and say, hey, do you want me to run this? You know, that kind of thing. Yep, you could do that. You could do that. Although, like I said, 9 is really respectable. 9 is really respectable. Like on really good days at Reaper, we'd get 20 plus. But often at Reaper, it was more like 8, 9, 10 people. But that's fine because you get a good dedicated core. And then other people just kind of filter in and out. So it depends on how big of a paint. Because the bigger a crowd you get, this is the give and take of it. With a smaller crowd, you yourself will get more work done if you are the person mostly teaching and helping people. With a big crowd, you will never get any painting done because you will be too busy helping people. So if you're the flagship, if you are the person who is running the paint club, those are the pros and cons. I always really liked days at paint club that were slower because I would not only be able to help people on a more in-depth level without ignoring other people, but I would also be able to get some painting done. So getting a really big paint club does have its price. Yeah. Yeah, in-store postings and just being there, right? Because the people who stop in and wander over and who are curious are people who stopped in already during the time you were running it, so they probably have that time free in their schedule, you know, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, definitely in-store postings and all the rest of it. And having, if any of the staff at the store are into the hobby or at all even have a slight interest, if they remember to tell people who are otherwise buying miniatures painting product, that is also the plus. All right, so while we're chatting, where is my Nightmare Black? It's very, very sniffly today because we had a lot of rain over the weekend, and now we're going to have more rain tomorrow. I have to do my lawn today. Oh, all the employees paint too. So you have an ideal setup then, because if all the employees paint, then they're going to be really proactive about pushing it. Yeah, yes. Yeah, and it may take weeks or months before you get enough momentum. Exactly. I mean, I find that it's very likely you find like one other person, maybe two, that for a just starting paint club become your core. And then it all depends on the amount of interest in the area and how much your game store like makes it sound like a fun thing to do when they tell people about it. Also, another thing to think about, Cranston, is age requirement. Because especially if you're in a store like that, people will just drop their freaking kids off. And when the kids are good, that's fine. When the kids are not good, that is not fine. So we always had a requirement that any kid like less than teenage Either one, the parent needed to be with them the first time they came, and then we'd either we'd approve them if they seemed like they were able to focus and be respectful and polite and generally well behaved. But it's something to think about because I did run into problems with being perceived as a babysitting service. So be aware. We had some kids who were just delightful, and then we had some, like, honestly, just way out of control. Yeah, it's just something like having run paint clubs for, 2 decades. It's things I've learned, right? Is to think about this stuff so that you know how to handle it when it happens, because it will happen. At some point, it will happen. Or when you do your flyer, make sure you say, kids under 10 and need to have a parent present. Or whatever your age, or kids under 12 if you want. It depends on it also depends on like how much you like kids and how comfortable you are with kids, right? Like, I'm okay with kids, and some kids I really like, but I don't have any idea how to handle somebody else's kids who are misbehaving, right? That's just something that I don't know what's proper in that case. Like, so, all right, I'm mixing up this 2-to-1 mix of blue liner and Nightmare Black. But yeah, so I needed more guidance. Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. People will use you as their babysitter. Yep. They don't think of it that way, but they're essentially, I'll just drop them off for a little while, and then a little while turns into an hour and a half, right? Yep. Yeah, adult voice. Yep, exactly. And I am not, like, I don't have children of my own. I've just, handled other people's children in settings like this, and my niece and nephew. So I'm not necessarily comfortable disciplining somebody else's child, or even, like, knowing how sternly to speak to them. So for me, it was very much if your kid is, 12 or under, I want a parent there for the first time, and maybe all subsequent times, depending on how much oversight the kid needs. But yeah, it's something to think about, because we want to encourage kids in the hobby, but you also need to keep your sanity and enjoy what you're doing, because you're volunteering to do this, and presumably you get something out of it as well, which could be just an enjoyable afternoon painting with people. But when it becomes like a real trial, that you have to, like, essentially do a babysitting job on the side of your, this afternoon that you originally just wanted to hang out and paint and teach people, then it becomes like, question mark, why am I doing this? Hey, Kodiak, thank you. Uh-oh. Happy sub-anniversary, happy sub-anniversary, happy sub-anniversary, happy sub-anniversary. Thank you. 12 months. Yee! Round of applause. Yeah, no unintended children under 12. That's a pretty good rule. Because I can deal with teenagers. Like, do teenagers have reason brains? Somewhat, right? Yeah, set a clear age limit for sure. Yep. Have to be 14 to be on your own, yeah. Yeah, right. They will send 8-year-olds into the store alone with their credit card. Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, they will. Yeah, it's just like, people. Gonna get my things mixed up here again. As I'm sitting here talking to you guys about this stuff and trying to keep my brain on track enough to mix. Yeah, good luck on that. It's Monday for sure. Shadow Raven is right. I went to the garden center this weekend. It was very dangerous. I emerged with a raspberry bush. I did not emerge with the $220 Japanese maple that I desperately wanted for bonsai. So it was somewhat a victory. Rules sheet at the paint table. Yep. That's nice. Rules sheet and adult and child have to read it both. That's good. Right, exactly. Exactly, Shadow Raven. Yeah. Yeah, I got a little one of the clumping kind that do well in pots. Because we had a big pot. I had my curry tree in it, my curry leaf tree for Indian cooking. But the curry tree did okay for the first part of the winter, but then we got that really cold snap for our climate, and it died. So I was like, I have this 5 gallon pot, and we love, as you all know, we have tons of like fruit trees and stuff, and herbs and other things that we grow in our that just came with our house. So it seemed like a no-brainer because we have strawberries to also have raspberries. No, I know they spread, Carrie Michael, but that's why I bought the raspberry shortcake variant, which is a clumping one, and it's only going to be in the pot. They're easy to container grow as long as you get them enough water. David folks have actual raspberries, and they are always digging up a clump and giving it to their neighbors because they do spread so much. So yeah, we knew. But thank you for the just in case I hadn't known. I do my reading though. Yeah, yeah. The pot has a hole in the bottom, but it also has mesh, like a real fine mesh. Yeah, a lot of berry bushes are. How does a tiny Japanese maple? Oh no, it's not a tiny. Okay, so bonsai. All right, a lot of people have misconception about bonsai. However, having done bonsai for years before I moved, bonsai is any tree up to 3 feet typically. So 3 feet is a pretty big tree, right? Like if I was measuring from the ground, it's about my shoulder height. So the tree I was looking at was actually a 24-inch tree that had actually grown taller and been cut down, which is kind of what you want for that thick trunk. So it was a really nice ornamental, like 2 foot Japanese red maple with a really thick trunk. It would have been such a pleasure. But yeah, $220. Japanese maples are super stupid, like popular here because they do so well in this climate. Unlike in Texas, where all of mine eventually died. And where the bonsai guy looked at me like I was crazy when I said I wanted maples. Yeah, I've seen, actually my favorite unattended children sign is unattended children will be sold. Oh, yeah. Well, you don't want to go there, Twisted Oma, because then you risk offending people. You just want to pretty much say that people need to, Are you clipping things? Oh no. Yeah, yeah. Well-behaved kids can be a pleasure, and then you get to teach the next generation. Yes, yes, they will be fed to dragons if they get ornery. Yes, that's a good one. Actually, that's a really good one, Inara. Unattended children will be introduced to Warhammer 40k. Okay, you win, Cranston. You win. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh no, with a drum set, Agent Marvel. Yeah, yeah, I missed him. Yeah, my parents wouldn't let me have drums. All right. Slowly, I am like mixing up these colors as we totally go off the rails on a Monday. Red Bullet and Kazoo is good as well. Movie thingy. Movie thingy. I didn't see what they wanted to clip. Yes, any of the above. Any of the above. For sure. But yeah, it's good to know that raspberries will grow out of the bottom of the pot as well. I'm hoping because these are supposed to be very good in pots that it won't be an issue, but I can also, the pot is actually on flagstones, like it's on our back porch. So we won't have, it's not on dirt, so we won't have a problem there. It can try to escape, but it's not going to escape. But yeah, our biggest problem is going to be keeping Kiki from eating it. Although, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how the Keekster does. All right, and now I'm gonna mix up a white. Let's zoom back out and show what we're doing. So we're making essentially a quadrant here. Yeah, one would hope that the fact that it's not a terribly edible plant. Yeah, well, we've already got an invasive species in our back, along our back of our house. We have a big section of mint. The gardeners cut it down, and it's kind of like it's got a sage clump next to it. So like the sage clump tends to inhibit it from spreading easily, and it's got a brick row in front of it that keeps it from spreading out into the lawn. But we're used to battling the mint creepers. And that was just something the previous owner had planted. But I like having access to fresh mint for some recipes, so... Mint is awful until you need it for a recipe, and then you're super happy that you have mint. Oh, Kiki's stubborn. Yeah, I don't know. Well, but then again, she doesn't touch our cacti, right? We have succulents, and she doesn't touch those. Yeah, they already planted the mint. The mint was already in place when we moved in, so I've just left it. It's not that much of a... I can see when it's creeping past the sage and just pull up those creepers, so I haven't had a problem controlling it over the past 2 years we've been in the house. Because I knew it was a pain in the butt. Because I used to have aero gardens. I used to have the hydroponic garden thing, and I read about the fact that mint will essentially, if you plant it in one of those, it will take over and choke off all your other plants. So I already knew that mint was a beast. But yeah, I have hope for the raspberries. I'm going to plant them. If I have time to do yard stuff today, then I'm going to replant them. It's nice to have, much as we all hate the daylight saving shift, it's nice to have that extra time in the evening where I can go outside and do yard and garden stuff. Oh, no. Okay, you want something that's a pain in the butt to have planted on your property line? I'm looking right at it. A row of bamboo right across our fence on the other side of it, which constantly sends shoots across to poke up into our yard. Oh boy. Honestly. Ugh. Really. Yeah. And bamboo is awful because you just can't kill it. Yeah. Yes, bamboo is worse than mint. Yep. So it's just like whenever I see a shoot, I just have to kill it. I just have to snip it off because otherwise you have to dig down through the root mass and pour boiling water over it. Good luck with that. You're going to be spending a crap ton of money to have somebody do it, and they might not even get it all. Yeah, blackberries are terrible. The brambles, yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah, bamboo is a nightmare. Yeah, it's our neighbor's bamboo. It's right on the other side of our fence, but it sends out those dang creepers, and I'm sad that they've got so many plants. Like, their yard is just like this cornucopia of crap that they planted. And maybe they didn't plant it. Maybe the previous owner planted it. Either way, whoever planted it needs to take it back. But yes, bamboo is terrible. All right, so I've got all my colors here. We've got our near black and our pure white, and we've got 3 shades between. And we're keeping mostly on the darker side because we are doing really blue-black armor. So now I have to find out where my glasses are, and of course they're on me. And now we'll see if I've thinned enough, right? This is the question. So we did this side, and it's looking pretty good. Let's get close and get in focus. That's pretty crazy, Crowley. No thanks. Yeah, it's just the... Unless he was doing Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, like sword fighting on the top of it, which, you know, that's cool. That's cool. But most people aren't. Yeah, they eat the tender shoots, I think. Yeah, I'm going to count it as impossible, Professor Mortis, because I'm not going to dig it up and pour boiling water on it, and I can't kill my neighbors anyway. So as long as my neighbors exist, because I can't kill their plant, it's their plant. As long as my neighbors exist, I cannot overcome it, so I just deal with it. I stop stressing over it. All right. Just taking a little bit of pure white and making sure that I have a nice poppy highlight on that stuff. Technically, I should have a highlight right here. There. Yes, it's true. Pandas do not live here. Sadly, many landscape architects and landscapers still recommend planting bamboo as an ornamental, and I think I just about freaked the last time it was suggested to me. I just, in my experience, it always looks terrible, and it's always more invasive than you want it to be. Okay, so we need a round highlight here on this side of the breastplate, so I'm just blocking that in. But then they would just create a new problem, Shadow Raven. If you have learned nothing else from stories of ecological meddling, you should learn that importing one problem to deal with another problem creates a whole new problem. Witness the feral mongoose problem in Hawaii. Mongoose were imported to kill snakes in Hawaii. Hawaii has no snakes. Hawaii does have a large feral mongoose population, which is troublesome. Well, and mongoose are cute too, but do you want them everywhere? Yep. Yeah, because mongoose will also eat eggs, correct. Yep. Yeah, see, that's the problem. It's like you end up with another problem. All right, so we have two different takes here, and on this one I did more of a soft highlight and a fade, and this one I did more hard, so we're going to actually fix that. There's two different ways to do that NMM, but I want more of a fade, so I'm going to blend it in with my dark color. I don't know about that one. I haven't done any research on the tree frog thing, Twistodoma. But it's why Hawaii has such extreme, like when you go into Hawaii, they will have you fill out an agricultural form. And they're pretty hardcore about it, about screening stuff, for agricultural stuff. So, but yeah, just because they're so isolated that when something comes in that is a problem, it's a big problem if it's at all invasive and takes over stuff. I dreamt last night I had a house in Hawaii. It was a nice dream. I blame David watching Hawaii Five-0 all the time recently. Okay, so that was correct placement, but huge. So we're going to glaze over that. Or just take it off. Or just blend it in. We'll just blend it in. Yeah. Yeah, fingers crossed, Thormo. I think people would learn. Kind of blending out here, and then I'm going to come back with my dark. Probably do a bit of a glaze. But yeah, it's just sad. Yeah, ecosystems may quote unquote balance out, but it may result in a not good solution, like as you point out, like songbirds being completely destroyed in Hawaii because of egg-eating mongoose. Back and forth on this. This one isn't making it as easy as the last one did. So I'm just tuning the highlight until they look the same, so I have to shrink the highlight. It's gotten too big on that side. So after later on in this stream, I'll whip out my new Reaper models and show you guys what I've got, and we'll probably replace Jeannie with Kathy Wapple, but we're coming up on, like, we're done with Yellow Lady. We could also replace Yellow Lady with Kathy Wapple, because I kind of have it in mind to do a yellow and magenta scheme on Kathy. Although we could do a blue and magenta scheme on Kathy instead. But she's got to have magenta because her hair is magenta. So we know that one of our colors is magenta. The easy way to do it from there is to go with the primary. So to go either blue or yellow. We could also go purple. Like the mixes here, Professor? Like when I just created my highlight series here? Or mixing colors do you have a specific? Because it varies. It varies depending on the color and what my goal is. These are easy. Anything like this is easy. So we started out with the blue-black, and I've got 2 blue-blacks in the Reaper line. One of them is Nightmare Black, and one of them is Blue Liner. So the blue liner produces, if you add white to it, I know it produces more of a grayed out color. And I wanted this to have more of an intense blue pop. But at the same time, I know Nightmare Black, if you add white to it, is a very intense blue. Like, it goes very blue. So this goes more gray when you add white, and this goes more blue. Even if you put them next to each other on the palette, like just straight, they'll both look very similar. They'll look like identical colors. But this one has a very heavy load of blue pigment, and you find that out when you add white. So essentially, I wanted something in between. So I decided to go 2 drops of blue liner to 1 drop of Nightmare Black to get an intermediary, essentially a nice blue-black, but that still had a little bit stronger blue in it. So that was my choice. And And then from there, it's just adding white. And when you're starting with a really dark transparent color, you add just a little bit of white at first. So here, I just have my main color, which is the 2-to-1 blue liner to Nightmare Black. And I swatch these on cards, so I remember what I do. And then I add just 1 drop of white to essentially this mix, and I get a little bit, that's that color. From there, I want to go up to a substantial next step. But why I'm doing this right here is because this is a really transparent color. And so I need to add just a little bit of white to get it to layer up nicely. If I add too much white, it's just never going to blend. So then I go up to here, and every blend from that point forward is just I take 2 big brushfuls of my previous color and add 1 or 2 drops of white. So in this case, I wanted it to go up pretty far. So I added 2 big brushfuls of this, and then I added 2 drops of white, pure white. And I end up with this color. And then this next color, which I don't have down here, is essentially the same thing. It's 2 brushfuls of my base color here, and then 2 drops of white, and then just pure white. So sometimes you don't need 2 drops of white. Sometimes you only need 1, but because these colors have so much black and blue pigment in them, they need more. And you would just learn that through trial and error, because you want to be able to see the difference. When you're building transitions like this, the rule is essentially that you need to be able to see the different steps. And if you don't know how to really eyeball that, you can use the grayscale on a color wheel. Even this is a very small color wheel, but it has a grayscale here. And if you essentially hold the edge over the color you're looking at, let's get this all out of the way. So here's my colors. Let's try value 6. So you essentially want to hold it over the edge like that and see. Now there you can see the gray is a little lighter. So you go back here and you're like, value 5. See how value 5 kind of disappears up against that blue-gray? So that means that this is a value 5 color. So then you go and you check your next one. And you want to usually see 1.5 to 2 steps between. So if this is a 7, and it is, because you can see that the value 6 is too dark, and the value 3 is too light, but it's a perfect 7. So that means there's exactly 2 steps between these colors, which makes them a good step. You got it? Do you see what I'm saying? So I can do this usually by gut at this point because I know what 2 steps looks like, 1.5 to 2. But if you don't, then get yourself a really cheap little color wheel. I think these are $2.99 on Amazon. Just like miniature color wheel or mini color wheel. Yep. And that way I know that I have the correct number of steps. Now I am thinning this a lot too, because if you don't thin it, then you're just, they're going to be too different. So you have two options here, Professor. Two options. You can either use fewer colors and make them more different, but thin them a lot, or you can mix more colors and keep them closer together and you won't have to thin them as much. So essentially, if you put more steps in here with thicker colors, you could get away with not thinning as much. Like maybe only 1 drop of water per 4 drops of paint instead of like, what I'm doing, which is more like a 2-to-1 or more. And the more white I add, the more I have to thin the color to make it blend well. So there's several components to this, as you can see. But yeah, the easiest way to build highlights is just to add white and then to take a little bit of that mix, move it to a new well, add white, yada, yada, yada. If you use a wet palette, obviously you can kind of just create little patches of different colors. Or you can do your just mixing it off the cuff, which is what the wet palette is good at. But if you're a beginning painter, I usually suggest that you try both the well palette and the wet palette. Unless you try the wet palette and you're instantly, like it's the way you want to paint. That does happen with some people. But if you're not sure and you have some trouble with the wet palette, I recommend trying the well because it allows you to control all this stuff. Then once you have a feel for the paint consistency that you need for different things and the color steps that you want, then go back to your wet palette once you've internalized that stuff, and you'll be able to use your wet palette a lot better. But the wet palette is really about having an intuitive grasp of paint consistency and color jumps. And very few of us have that out the gate. So I'm just trying to tune this down a little bit now. My highlight here is still just a little bit too much. But yeah, now there are exceptions. With reds and greens, I add yellow and white instead of just white. Unless I'm going with a very cold red, then I will just add white. But that has its own rules, and I'm about to do a Patreon PDF on that. For my Patreon, which is patreon.com/paintingbig. There we go, much better. Thank you for the spam, Quindy. That's all the places you can find me. I don't know if you're a new painter or if you're an experienced painter who's getting back in after a break, or if you're just, an intermediate or a different intermediate level or advanced level who just found me. But if you're newer, then my YouTube is worth going to take a look at. I have some fundamentals stuff on there that can be useful. All right, so we've got this arm now, and we need to put the highlights need to come down in more or less a line. And my first coat is really, you can see how it blends in. It's really close to the dark. You love to spam, I know. So we're just popping in some of the intermediate highlight. Things like this little circle piece on the elbow, I'm not going to need to blend very much, so I'm just going straight to my mid-tone and not doing the first highlight, because only the edges are going to pick up a light and it doesn't require blending. Oh, Keeker, somebody's just messing around with their bins out there. You just go settle. And then the elbow here is really just tiny little small area. Once again, you don't need a lot of blending when you've got a tiny area. Just putting a spot highlight on that little elbow part is enough. And then on a cylindrical area that is horizontal to the light, you just need that line of highlight there and some reflected light down below. Hey, Roger. Yes. Now, Kiki is just like excited by any new noise outside. She's a good watchdog. I have to figure out how to sort out my week this week. I've got Patreon stuff to get done. Plus publishing the book. Finishing the last things to publish the book. Ran into a snafu over the weekend. I actually told my stream about it on Saturday. But I uploaded my ebook version to my Kindle and my phone and my browser to see if it looked okay, and it didn't. So then I had to waste time. Well, it wasn't a waste, because obviously if it doesn't look right, then it needs to be fixed, right? But it still was really annoying to find that it did not look right, and I had to change my formatting for the ebook. Looked great in the print version, but Kindle did not recognize it. Now, I have an older Kindle, too. Yeah, I have an older Kindle, Quindy, so that could have been it, but a lot of people have older Kindles, and so I still couldn't let it slide. So eventually, after trying a bunch, I did find a layout template that read correctly on my version of the Kindle and looked good and was in line with my genre and what I wanted. And then I had to re-export, and now I have to recheck that today just to see how it looks. Make sure that it didn't cause any problems with the way my chapters are arranged or anything, or how my end matter looks or whatever. So, yep. Yeah, it was kind of a pain in the butt because I was really close. I was like, I can do this, and then it was like, I can't do this. So I ended up working on book 2 at Write Club yesterday instead of working on publication stuff, which is fine. But it just goes to show that, like, I was right to keep my publication date flexible because things are happening that just continues to push stuff off. That said, I do not anticipate any more hiccups. Unlikely, Pendrake. Unlikely. Right now it looks good on everything, because it also looks good now in the browser. I can only check it on so many devices, though. I mean, there comes a point where you just need to go and publish it and have done your due diligence, and if somebody reports that it looks crappy on their Kindle, then you pay attention. But right now I can't go out and buy a new Kindle. Yeah, it should be fine. I just, I need to check and make, because I had to change the font, so I need to check and make sure that it does look okay. Just scroll through some chapters, make sure that nothing weird happened. But yeah, there's only so much I can do. I'm not going to go out and buy a new Kindle to see if it looks okay. And it doesn't look pretty, but it looks functional on my phone, so I'm like, all right. Just gonna go for it. Yeah, exactly. Well, it looks okay. It just doesn't have the pretty chapter starts. Like, there's this super pretty chapter begins in my book, and the phone does not interpret those for some reason. I am not going to plan an audiobook version, Crows, until I see if it actually sells. Most novels don't really make enough to warrant the audiobook. But if the book does well, then I will look at it. Probably have to go through Audible because of the super bad clause in Findaway Voices about machine learning stuff. So, but yeah, not even in the plan. Like, they advise you, and I think it's very smart advice not to even look at audio, because it's going to take you multiple thousands of dollars to hire that voice actor. And I already have spent multiple thousands of dollars on this book. So let's just take a step back and see if anybody even wants to read it, right? But yeah, and I wouldn't expect, the best advertising for the old book is to publish a new book. So I honestly wasn't even thinking. I was thinking I will not even look at audio until I have at least the first 2 books out and maybe even the third. At that point, maybe enough people would be reading the series that I can afford to do audio. But yeah, and when I do that, the way that it happens, if you didn't know this, when you want to find a voice actor for your audiobook and you do not know anybody already in the industry, you can you essentially go out and you put up a sample of your book for the audio actors to read and an audition. But if your book is new or it doesn't have enough reviews, nobody's going to want to read it. So, because the audiobook, people are looking to get, they're looking to find that book that makes their name and gets them lots of business. So if your book has less than 10 or 20 reviews and it's brand new and you have no other books, no voice actor is going to want to do your book. Unless, if you have a friend who does audio, sure. But I need a female. I have a friend, 2 friends who do audio, but I need a female voice. So, and both of them are guys. So yeah, I'm going to be holding off. It will, I hope that eventually it will warrant an audio version. Because I personally like audiobooks and it would be nice. But I also know that I can't just keep throwing tons of money at this project with no return. Yup. Yeah, it's usually, I believe, at least a couple grand. And if there's royalty splitting involved, you need to figure out how you're going to do that, right? Because that's the other thing. Is it used to be that I think Audible used to auto split your royalties, and then they stopped doing it. So now you, the author, have to do that, which adds a new level of accounting into your business. So that's another reason I'm just like, I don't even want to mess with it right now. Now, TB Amy's husband, who is also publishing, self-publishing, indie publishing, he's lucky. He has a friend who is a voice actor and who has already agreed to do his book. So that's the best. Like, if you have a friend who does it, who is correct for your book, like who's the right kind of voice for your book, and they offer to do it. That's like the best case. But I don't know anybody, and so I'm just going to be taking the long road. But yeah, there's a company called Findaway Voices that used to be one that a lot of indie authors used because it was easier to find like voice talent on there than it was on Audible. But then they got outed because of their machine learning clause, where essentially in order to utilize them, you agree to let your book be used for machine learning. And that, of course, is a huge nope right now for most creatives. Especially because they're not paying you anything for the use of it, right? And then they can just like, it's just not real good. Although I did read a interesting discussion of the whole AI and machine learning stuff with regard to writing. That the opinion of the person was kind of like, well, I can have an AI write a novel in the style of Isaac Asimov, but it's not going to emotionally catch you the way that Asimov's work would because it's not written by a human. So the AI doesn't really understand like the emotional like resonance thing. Yeah. Yeah, you just need somebody who your readers don't hate, right? You need to be able to choose the right person for the job. And there might be several right people for the job. But whoever you pick, Like if you're doing a series, you want to be able to afford that person for the whole series, right? If you use them and it's popular, like that's the voice that gets associated with your series. And so I'm just taking some white here and just trying to really get a little bit of a highlight here. There, under reflection. So what we want here is we want the main highlight is that white. We want a band of shadow underneath it, and then we want this lighter band here. And this is reflected light. Light that's reflecting back from like this chainmail and the environment around. And you want a little bit of that. And you don't want it to go up to pure white. So when you do what I just did, you want to come paint over it a little bit with there. Perfect. And that's different from this little highlight down here on the end of this little circle piece, which is actually kind of the edge is flaring out a bit. And so this is not reflected light here. This is actually top light that's glancing over both edges and the center. Yeah, so I don't know about the whole AI learning thing. I don't know if AIs will eventually get so good at mimicking human processes, like mental processes, that they'll also be able to capture the emotional resonance that a writer can produce if they're good. No idea. It's a great unknown, but I think for now I want to just avoid that whole... It seemed a little shady that Find a Way like had that clause in there, but really we're just kind of like, do, we're just carefully not drawing your attention to this. Well, that's just the person, though. Like, it's just like personalities. Some personalities are less emotional. And so they tend to write more cerebral work, and that's Asimov, right? But, I mean, his stories still would pull you in, right? Like, they still had depth. And it's that depth, that emotional and intellectual depth is can an AI create that? Right now, no. In the future, who knows? It's all like question marks. But yeah, so audio is its own beast, and it's not really advisable for a new author to take it on at the beginning because it's just so expensive. It's such an investment. And the thing is that when you put out a book, you don't know if anybody's going to read it. Maybe nobody reads it. Maybe a few people read it, but it doesn't like catch on, right? Maybe a few people read it and they think it's okay, but they don't like it enough to talk to their friends about it. Like that's the real thing, right? Word of mouth is really what spreads awareness of books. And so one of the things that one of the people the writing coaches I follow is really adamant about is she's like, don't keep throwing money at items that the market doesn't want, right? Oh no, a spike. Right. So, and just because the market doesn't want it doesn't mean that it's never going to want it. And it doesn't mean that the product is even bad. It just means that right now the market doesn't want a particular product. So as the writer, you'd be better off starting a new series and writing something else for a while. And certainly not spending thousands of dollars on an IP that the market is just like meh about, right? So I think it's the most important thing, and this is true, and I say this all the time, is writing and painting are so similar, but it's true either way. Like you can put out like your best piece of work, painted work ever. You could paint an amazing miniature that you're just so proud of. And it might not, like your friends might not really like it. Or maybe, you know, it doesn't score as high as you wanted it to in the painting competition. You know, or you put it up on eBay and it doesn't, you know, it sells for $50 instead of 200 or whatever, right? All of those things, any metric that means something to you, the painter. And it may just, it's not that the model isn't good. It's not that the model isn't a great example of a painted figure. It's not that you didn't spend time on it. It's just that the market outside of yourself isn't all about it. It isn't what it wanted. It's very ironic, Twisted Oma, that who usually have so many issues, are the one person who's not having issues. That's funny, Kroniko. You're fine. You're fine. We will take our Kroniko whenever we can get our Kroniko. Yeah, and I know. It's our fault for changing our clocks. But yeah, so I mean, the biggest thing about when you're doing any creative pursuit is not to take it personally. Like, and it can be hard, right? Because we put so much of our effort and love into these little miniatures, or in my case, into my writing and my miniatures.